table when we're finished, make sure you do that. It's a sign-in sheet you've already signed, but it's copied, it's photocopied. So if you will just use the blue or the brown marker back there, and just sign over it again, it'll be just fine. We're going to talk about our TPA today. Everybody, who had to go to school today? Oh, rephrase. Who did not have to go to school today? Woo! Oh yeah, 11 live, right? Yeah. Okay, so you guys are getting your first taste of teaching and being flexible. Who got their their lesson plans are all out of whack now? 2 hands, everybody. Yeah. So it happens, but you guys will just work with your teachers. It'll be just fine. I'm gonna just go ahead and just start by talking about this because I've had a few questions. Actually, I've had more than a few questions. And I know it's on a lot of people's minds because it's going around your schools and you're talking about it and that sort of thing. And that's a possible work stoppage. We went through this last spring. And if it happens this spring, we'll just power through it again. This is just what I want to ease your mind with. A work stoppage will not affect your grade or your completion of student teaching. Does that help? Okay. So nobody is not going to pass student teaching because there's a work stoppage. Okay. I'm going to send you some information probably this afternoon or in the morning that we sent out last spring over the same thing. Just with just our stance, kind of our information on it. There are no real rules. We can't tell you don't go to an informational meeting or don't stand on an informational picket. Those are your choices as citizens. Those are totally your choices. What we say is you are not expected to cross a picket line to go to a student teaching placement. You guys understand where I'm going with that, okay? So you all are our first priority and taken care of, and we will always take care of you. So know that. Do you want to add anything to that? No? Is that good? Okay. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lucas, and we'll get started. Okay.
Good afternoon, how are you? So those of you that didn't have school, did you just get up a little bit ago? That's what I thought, but okay, so enjoy that. You may get to do that again tomorrow, some of you, but some of you will not. And if you were in class at Marshall, which I've been here 26 years, I don't think this has ever happened, that we've had a delay to 11 o'clock. Usually it's to 10, but I don't know, so that was a little different. But anyway, so now is the time to be honest. Did you read your assignment? Good, okay. So you've read the rubric, you know what is expected for a 2, a 3, or a 4. And you know that a 2 is what you're shooting for to pass, but it's always nice to try to do a little bit better than that. So we talked about task 1 on orientation day, and hopefully you've already started gathering some of that information about your contextual factors of your schools and all of that, and probably some of you are getting that information from your teacher and principal. Yes?
Yeah, so question there was a way that you guys showed us how to get that information from the schools, and I completely forgot how to do that as soon as I left.
When you say a guide, do you mean in the orientation?
In the orientation, yeah.
Was it Dr. Watson sitting over here? Okay. Do you want to? What did he show? I can't remember what he showed you. I think he just told you to go to the West Virginia Department of Education's homepage, or did you show him something?
There is actually, if you open the chart lecture file on the very first page of it, there's a link that takes you directly to the website.
On the, if you open the chart maker, and that's one of the files in your TPA, on that page. If you open it at the very top, there's a link. I forgot about that. And that will take you.
That's the quickest one.
Okay, so I go to the West Virginia Department of Education website and then
We'll just go to that link. Click on that link, and it will ask for a county? Okay, it'll ask you for the county, so whatever county you're teaching in. information.
All right.
Maybe not everything you want, but it'll give you a great start.
Okay, thanks.
Okay? Anything else? So do we know what our unit is going to be on? Good. Do we know what standards our unit is going to cover? So, if not, you need to hopefully have already decided or decide quickly what your unit is going to cover. And then you need to look at the state standards and choose those that fall within your unit, okay? Regardless of how many there are, we do not have a set limit on the standards. So once you choose those standards that you're going to cover in your unit, then what you need to do is you need to go to each of those units and you need to write goals, which are also objectives, from that standard. And those our students will be able to block, okay? Now, one standard, you may be able to write 3 goals. Another standard, you might only be able to write 1. Now remember, the standards are very broad. So there may be more in the standard that you're going to cover in your unit, and that's okay. We just ask you to highlight the part of the standard that you're going to cover. But you do need to write goals / objectives, the term in the TPA's goal, from the standard. Yes, ma'am.
I'm doing a social studies unit, and the standard it has like 8 bullet points. Should I include the entire standard into, or should I include just any bullet points? I don't know other teachers in the past have sort of had this idea.
I would include the entire thing, only because the evaluator that's going to be reading it doesn't necessarily know, and social studies may or may not be his or her field. And it would be nice to have the whole standard there so we can kind of see what you're doing, and then if you're only going to do bits and pieces of it, then highlight it.
Okay, and is there, about integration, is there a number that you, other subject teachers want us to integrate, or?
And look, now your supervisor may have a different idea. He or she may want you to integrate 1 or 2 others, or 3 or 4, but we do not have a set limit for that.
Thank you.
So once you have, is there an empty seat somewhere?
I'm playing it.
Oh, okay. Mrs. Priest,
There's one
for
right here.
lunch. Oh, there's one. Okay. So once you have your standards, and once you write your goals, you need to look and make sure that you have at least 3 goals. Okay? Now, you may have 22 goals, and that is perfectly fine. Until you get to the rest of your TPA, and then you may wish you didn't have 22. But you need to write goals to cover what it is you're going to cover. Okay? So we're not giving you a limit for standards, but you have to have at least 3 goals. So that could be all from one standard, that could be from 3 different standards. Okay? That is the entire unit. Okay? You might have 4 goals and have, 4 standards and have 2 goals from one, 3 from another, 1 from another, and 4 from another. I think that was 10 that I said. So you would have a total of 10 goals. But as long as you have at least 3 goals, you're good. Now, how many standards do you have to have? Whatever meets your unit, correct? What I just said? How many goals do you have to have? At least 3. Can you have 20? Yes. Okay. So at least 3. The only reason I'm asking you this over and over is because that question will come to Mrs. Priest probably before we get back to the office.
72 times.
So anyway, so you have those. Now you need to be thinking about your pretest. Okay, remember, I mentioned this the first day during orientation. You need to give a pretest to your class to know what they know, to figure that out. Because if they know everything that you're planning to teach, then you shouldn't be teaching this lesson. So you're going to write your pretest, and as you write your pretest, to be honest, it would be very beneficial for you to write after each question the goal that is being met in that, or it's being addressed in that question. Do you have to? No. Will you wish you had? Yes. If you want to do it on a separate copy and not give that information to the students because you think it's going to confuse them, that's fine. But you're going to have to address each goal and whether the students mastered it or not. And it would be nice if you already had that identified when you write your pretest. So your pretest can be any number of questions, but you want to make sure that you cover all of your goals in that pretest. You might have 3 questions that cover the same goal, and that's fine. You just list it that many times.
I have a question.
Yes.
There's a percentage for percentage of mastery, and I was a little bit confused about.
We're not there yet, but
Okay,
okay, all
okay,
right, we'll
sorry.
get there. Give me just a second. So, so does that make sense? So when you write your pretest, it would be good for you to identify the goal that each question addresses. And that will help you know. You may look at your standards and your goals and say, wait a minute, I have 2 goals here and I didn't even address them in the pretest. And how do you know if you should be teaching them? Yes.
How do we do a pretest on this question?
Well, that's something you're gonna have to come up with, but think about it. It could be, it could be activity-based, and that's fine. We've had students who did it, activity, same way with music is a little iffy too, because some students will do an oral part of the music. It might be a skills-based pre-assessment. Maybe you wanna see what skills they know for basketball. And then you're gonna teach the basketball unit, and then you're going to see what they master. Maybe they don't have a clue what the word dribble means. So it could be part reading, it could be part activity. So we're gonna write our pretest. We're gonna make sure we have all of our goals covered in that pretest. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. When you give your post-test, there are differing opinions on whether your pre and your post should be the same, but we say that your pre and your post should be the same. Because if not, you're not going to be able to determine at this level whether the students mastered that goal or not. Okay? Even you probably don't even want to change the wording, because if you change the wording, it may confuse the student and they may or may not understand it to be that same way you were asking it previously. Okay? Yes?
In that case, should we not give them back the test because they could just look at it and mark it for the post-test?
Well, it depends on how you want to go over it. I mean, I would definitely let them know how they did. You can give it back and they're not going to know at this level, even at the high school level. Pre-test means post-test. They probably are not going to know that. And even if they do, they probably don't know it's going to be the same questions. And if you take it back up after you go over it, or you might just say, you know what, I gave the pre-test, that's just for me. I just wanted that information to see what you knew and what you didn't know. It is, and you need to let them know it is not a score. They're not being graded on it. And then you may say, what I will do is we're going to take a similar test at the end, and then we'll compare. So I don't know that I wouldn't give it back to them and let them keep it. And whether I discussed it or not, I don't know. But I would let them know up front, this is for me. I want to see what you know. Don't panic. You know. So are we good? So we have our standards, we write our goals, we write our pretest. Yes?
For a standard that requires a writing
Mm-hmm.
for the pre-test, if you do something that just asking how it could be written, and then the last part be the actual full document. What I'm doing is a lab report, so I was thinking of doing one of the steps in actually writing a lab report on the pre-assessment, and then on the final assessment, actually write a lab report.
Oh, okay, I thought that's what you were going to have them do on the pre. They're not going to write a lab report on the pre.
Not on the pre.
Or you could have them do that, but you want to make sure because of the way you're setting it up. I mean, it sounded to me like you said when you do the pre-test, you're still gonna have them write a lab report. They may have no idea what they're doing. And then rewrite another lab report at the end.
Now, I've done this thing on the pre-assessment, and they give an example, like, give them a lab and have them, they write a title and purpose and see what they do that for, and not all of it, they probably not know.
They probably won't know how, but let's pretend that they can do 3 steps of the lab piece. So, of the word just left me, the lab report. And then when they do the end, there's no sense in spending time during your unit on those 3 pieces. You might just remind them, I looked at your pretest, everybody knows these 3 sections, I just want to remind you what they are. Let's focus on the other 4, 10, 12, whatever's on your lab report. And then I'm going to expect you to write the full thing. That way you're still comparing, okay? Because if they can do it on the pre and they can't do it on the post, then maybe you assumed they could and that they were really good guessers. That's probably not going to happen, especially with the lab report. But I would still make it very similar. Well, I would still make it the same. Okay. So far, so good? All right, so now we give the pretest. And we see where our students excelled and where we can tell they didn't have a clue what was going on. And if a good majority of them passed maybe 3 of your 10 or 20 questions, then those are things that you don't need to spend a lot of time on. There's no reason to have a full day's lesson out of your unit on 3 of the things that all of them mastered, or the majority of them mastered. Yes?
I hate to go back some, but
Okay, that's fine.
is the pretest part, can we make it the first day of our unit, or is it just like we do it beforehand and then we start the unit?
We've had that question before, and we have differing views on that. So I'm going to tell you my opinion, and then I would definitely talk to your supervisor. But if you think, oh, my unit is just kind of weak and it's not going to cover 10 days, I'm going to use my pre and my post as 2 days, so now I only have to plan for 8, then I would say don't do that. If your unit is good and meaty and you've got really good stuff to cover it and you want to use that, then yes. But I would definitely see what your supervisor wants. A lot of them will say don't count that as a day because they want to see really good instruction and the meat of your unit during those days. Are we good? Okay. So we give the pre-test. We know what they know and what they don't know. We're not going to reteach what they know. I might go over it all in a 10-minute, I asked this question, you all do this, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. Then we're going to write our unit. We have not written our unit up to this point. So I'm not going to ask if you've written your unit. So we have not written our unit up to this point. Now we write our unit. Whatever it covers, etc. And then we give the post-test, even with the questions that they mastered, hoping they master it again on the post-test. Yes?
So on the task 4, it says you will create a minimum of 3 to 5.
Okay, wait, I'm going to get there.
Okay.
Okay? I'm just giving you an overview, just so we're all, and I'm doing it a little bit differently from the past because when I jump right in and do the task, we get somewhere and we've kind of lost. So that's in a nutshell what you're doing. So are we good?
Yes, Dr.
Okay, so let's look, Dr. Watson's with me. Let's look at task 2. Task 2 is basically where you're getting ready, you're picking out those standards, you're writing your goals, and they're measurable. Okay, I think I mentioned that, but they're measurable. This is what the student will be able to do. This particular TPA, because it's statewide, still includes the big idea. The new lesson plan template does not. I think the unit does. The cover sheet on the unit does, though. So the big idea is just kind of an umbrella of what your unit consists of. It's not an objective. The big idea should not be the students will be able to. Okay, the big idea should be just kind of a sentence or two like a little summary of what the content is. Okay, we don't want to know what the students can or can't be able to do, we're gonna find that out in the goals. And then you have part 4 there where it talks about the anticipated student challenges. So in the template that you have, and that piece is not there, I was looking at the directions. This template right here, you're gonna write your standard, you're gonna write the goals that go with it, and I'll be honest, you can do, you know, if it's one particular standard and you have 3 goals, you can put the 3 goals in individual slots and not repeat the standard and then come down and put your next standard, or you can repeat the standard 3 times and put the 3 goals over there, okay? And then you want to make sure that you put the level of your stand or your goal, okay? Taxonomy, wherever you are. And that's more or less to help you, because if you're all at the factual level, or you're asking everything here is just factual, the students will be able to list, the students will be able to define, the students will be able to, you know, if you're just regurgitating information, you probably need to think a little bit higher as far as thinking goes, okay? So that's task 2. Now, keep in mind, because you read this already, you know that the what to do column has a narrative piece. So there is a narrative piece to task 2 that says, in the narrative, do this. And if you'll look up here on the screen, we have that narrative piece there for you. So this is the template that you're going to be typing into or copying and pasting into. So don't leave a section blank. It asks you well, it's not a question, but it has a statement. It wants you to do something, so do it. Okay? Explain is more than 1 sentence. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Does it matter if we double or single space?
Not necessarily. I guess we've probably had both, but if you double, it's going to lengthen the document, which is okay. It is easier to read on us older eyes. And that's fine.
Can I put in a qualifier there, some of the people with older vision? 10-point font or higher. If you can make the space bigger, don't try to make the text smaller to fit the space.
Yeah.
Bifocals don't make things blow it up so much.
Did you all hear that? The space will expand with you, okay? Or you can expand the space if you need it. Don't decrease the size of the font to fit in the little space, because we didn't give you much space. Some of you are, in a good way, you're wordy. Okay? And I mean, sometimes we want you to be wordy, because sometimes we'll send it back to you and say you didn't say enough. And we don't want to hear, well, but I didn't have enough space. Make it bigger. Okay? So we're good? Task 2. Okay. All right, so task 3. Task 3 is your assessment plan. And I think I'm going to address your question on mastery over there. So in the template on task 3, what you're going to do is you're not making up new learning goals here. You are going back to task 2, part 3A, where you wrote those goals. And you're going to copy and paste every goal that you have is going to be here. Now, I think we only have space for 3 or 4, but if you have 20 goals, you need to expand this so that all 20 of them are listed there. So ever how many you have, but you have to have at least how many? 3. Okay. So you're going to copy and paste. Don't change anything. Copy and paste the goal, not the standard. Yes.
Don't expand it, copy the table over and over again because it won't be on. So if you have 8, make a second copy of the table before you start filling
So he just said copy the table instead of trying to come down here and add another line, because each of these lines has 3 lines and 2 columns, and it just, or actually 3 columns, it just makes it crazy. So just copy and paste this much of it and add it, and if you need 2 more of them, copy 2 more and add it. Okay, so we've got our learning goals in there, bless you. And then on each learning goal, you're going to talk about the pre-assessment, the formative assessment and the post-assessment. So the pre and the post are going to be from your pre and your post test. So they're going to be the same. So if you have on the pre-test, if questions, this is where labeling those questions will be very handy. If question 1, 7, and 15 address goal 1, then you're going to put question 1, 7, and 15. Now, if they're short enough that you can write them out or type them out, go ahead and do that so we're not constantly flipping back and forth. But if it's a big paragraph for each one of them, you can just say questions 1, 2, and or whatever I said, 1, 7, and 15. So then on post-test, it's going to be the same ones. Unless you reordered it. You could do that, but you just make sure you match them up the right way, okay? Then you have the formative assessment. You don't want to skip the formative assessment. So maybe during your unit, you, and I hate the word worksheet, but I know it's a popular word out there. So maybe you did some activity or activity sheet that addressed goal number 1, but it was not on the pre or the post. That's what you put there. Now you might have 10 formative assessments that you used to address goal 1, so you're just going to list them all there. And you're going to do the same thing for 2, goal 2, 3, and beyond if you have more. Yes? Uh-huh. The whole thing or just the formative assessment? The entire thing. Okay, so when you get to this template right here, you have, scroll down a little bit, Dr. Watson.
Forward.
Scroll down or up, whichever you call it, so I can see what's at the top of this chart. There you go. So you have the learning goals. So you're going to copy and paste from task 2, part 3A, and they're all going to be here. You have to have how many?
3.
You can have as many as you want. If you need to, copy and paste this chart over and over instead of trying to expand it. Would it be easier if I pointed on this one so you see? Okay, so okay, so you're going to do that for the pre and the post on each goal. Remember at the beginning when I said on your pre-test, it would be really good if you just put, you know, goal number 1, goal number 10, goal number 20, whatever. So when you get here, you're going to list those goals and the questions that were addressed on your pre and the post, you're going to list right here. So if you look at your pre-test and you see goal number 1 on question 1, 7, and 15, you're going to put questions 1, 7, and 15. If they're not big, you're going to redo them or rewrite them. If they're huge, you can just put the question number. It's going to be the same on the post-test because your pre and your post are going to be the same. Now you could reorder your post-test if that makes you feel better. You've got the exact same questions, but you're going to reorder them. Then obviously, probably questions 1, 7, and 15 will be a little bit different. Does that make sense? Then you've got formative assessment. There's going to be other ways that you're going to assess each of the goals without it being on the pre and the post. Okay? So you're going to put whatever that is. Whether it's a Hope Not worksheet, whether it's some group work, whether it's some activity, maybe you're going on a field trip, whatever it is, you're going to put that in the formative assessment. If you're assessing them. Now you may not be assessing anything on a field trip, so you don't have to put that there. Okay, but any assessment you're doing outside of the pre and the post, you're going to put there. Okay? Did that help? Yes. Okay. Now we're going to go to the mastery column. So, let's say I give you, you're in my class, and I give you a 10-point quiz. 10 points. What do you consider to be mastery? I think I heard 8.
I would agree with
What?
8.
8?
We're talking about 7 or
7?
generally passing.
Pardon me?
Are we talking about excelling or generally passing?
I'm talking mastery, enough that you're confident that I know what I'm doing on this concept, because this quiz that I gave you covers this concept, that I don't need to go back and reteach it. 8, 7, some of you might say, well, whatever the passing grade is, maybe 50 is a passing grade in your school, so you say 5. I can't tell you what mastery is. I think I'm talking about your question.
Okay, yeah. So,
Okay, wait a minute. Okay. I can't tell you what mastery is. You have to decide what is mastery. It may be 7 out of 10 on this one, but on this next one, out of 15, it might be 10. I don't know. Usually when you think of mastery, whatever it is, it's some percentage all the way through. I mean, I can't imagine you'd think one thing is 80% mastery and something else is really 50% mastery, but whatever. So what is mastery to you? Yes.
so basically, so say you only have 3 questions.
Okay.
And of course, what percentage works, the fewer questions you have, the higher the number has to be for mastery. So if you only have 3
If
questions.
you think mastery is high. I mean, if you get 2 out of 3, you're at 67%, so.
Usually the level of mastery for my school would be like a 7%.
Okay.
So if they got a 2 out of 3, that wouldn't be mastery, but.
So mastery would have to be that one on that. So then you probably don't want to give a pre-test or a post-test that only has 3 questions. That would help your situation.
Well, for each learning goal, it's for each learning goal, right?
Well, it's for each piece. So, yeah, but as a whole, yes. But as a whole, you can look at it and say, I'm still looking at
Okay.
80%, 90%, whatever, 70. Okay? So you have to decide what is mastery. And that's what goes out there in the right-hand column. You can put it as, I think we even have that, yeah, you can put it as a percentage, or you can say 9 out of 10 or whatever. Are you with me? Yes.
Do you want it to be consistent in percentage and out ofs? Like if we start with out ofs, we want to go the whole thing?
I mean, it would probably be easier for you and easier for the evaluator to keep track of, but not necessarily. I heard of something. Oh, yes.
My question is, so is the pre-assessment is the level of mastery we're putting in there, is the results of our pre-test, or is it our level of mastery that we're setting?
It's your level of mastery that you're setting. It's not what they did, okay? You have not graded it yet. This is, you know, when I give a test and I think, okay, if I get 50%, if everybody in the class scores a 50%, that is not mastery to me, so I'm gonna be doing some reteaching. If mastery to me is 80%, and either everybody or the majority of people in the class got an 80%, then they've mastered that material, and I'm gonna move on. I may have to work with a few that don't master it one-on-one, but for the most part, I'm moving on, okay? Then but it's what I consider to be mastery. Where is that line that tells me I don't have to go back and reteach? I don't know who was first, so we'll go ladies first, okay? Yeah.
So what are we gonna put in the level of mastery for the formative assessment? We do an activity based.
Same thing. If you're assessing it, what is the mastery? Yes.
So for one learning goal, would it be fair to just say pre-assessment and post-assessment would have the same level of mastery, or would we
Yes.
expect higher from the post?
Well, I can't, I mean, mastery's mastery. So whether it's on a pre or a post, to me, it doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
You know, if mastery's 80%, then you don't get it on the post-test or pre-test, then obviously that says, oh, this is good because I want to put up my unit.
So we can adjust if, like say we want it to be, so take a pre-assessment, say they already get that, should we set higher for post-assessment, or?
Not necessarily, it's still what they mastered.
Okay,
So usually those are gonna be the same.
all right.
Okay. Oh, he asked it or answered it? Okay, yes.
So if they have, you have one learning goal and 100%
You just picked
of your-
one, you don't just have one, right?
Yeah, I just,
Okay,
you
okay,
picked
all right, you just
so
picked
one
one.
of your learning goals,
Okay.
your students, for your formative assessment, your students have had 100% mastery on it.
Okay.
So it's, May, as you're writing your, you may consider like, well, this is something I really don't need to know over much, and then but continue it on the post test as well, it's not that I'm getting
Okay, so I missed that. So they mastered it on the pre-test, so you still ask, if it's on your pre-test, you're still gonna ask it on your post-test.
Okay.
You just might not spend a whole day in
Yeah.
your unit. That's something that you don't have to worry about
Okay.
teaching them because they already know it.
Okay.
Now, if something happens and they don't master it on your post, then either they were a really good guesser on your pre, or you said something in class that they thought they had it, now they don't, so they don't. So it could be a number of reasons.
Okay.
Yes.
So for where we have like the learning goal and then the pre-assessment, and we're putting the questions right there, is the mastery level for those specific questions or for the whole pre?
For those questions on that goal.
Okay, so if I have 3 questions, it's just for those?
Yes.
Okay.
For the formative assessment, like the mastery level, would it be fair to say that you could put like a lower number because like they're still learning during that process, or should it be the same as like the pre and post? So like if I had 80 for the pre and post, would it be okay to say like I had 70% on the formative assessment?
Okay, let me see if, so let's say that I'm a math person, for those of you that don't know that. So I'm a math person, so I'm gonna teach adding fractions. And on my pre-test, I have some adding fraction questions. Is it okay for me to say, we'll say I have 5. So is it okay for me to say on the pre-test, well, we've never gone over this. I am teaching the first grade, not first grade, I'm teaching the first grade that they would ever encounter adding fractions. And so I don't expect them to do well. So mastery, I'm gonna be thrilled, and they're going to have mastered it if they get 20% on the pre-test. And then I'm gonna give some formative assessments, and we're still gonna be doing some adding fractions and all that. And I'm hoping they're gonna get a little bit better. So one of them, I'm gonna say, okay, mastery's 30%. And then the next one, mastery's 40%. Mastery's 50%. And I don't expect mastery of 80% to be until we get to the post-test. Does that make sense?
No, because then they might hit mastery each and every time, then why are you still teaching it?
Right, and the word mastery doesn't mean anything because mastery is when you master something, okay? And I know that's bad, you should not use the word in the definition. But when I get it, when I understand it, I can add fractions, I've mastered adding fractions. Now, if I can just do a little bit in the beginning, I haven't mastered it. So I can't call that mastery. Now, are you all with me?
So
Okay.
we decide what would be considered mastery before.
Yes, yes. I mean, it may alter just a little bit depending on your percentages because you don't have a clear 80% or 90% or,
Yeah.
some of you may say mastery is 100%. I don't know. I don't know where that question came from, but, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Did that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so I wouldn't lower your, and I don't want to say your expectations, but yeah, your expectations of mastery just because they haven't covered it yet. Okay? I want you to get it, and I don't expect you to get it in the beginning. If you do, great, but I don't expect you to. But when I get through, I expect you to. Okay? Yes?
Okay, so a lot of my formative assessment, so most of my formative assessment is discussion.
Okay.
How would I put a level of mastery on discussion?
Are you going to be assessing them? Like, are you going to put a grade in your grade book
Right,
for
so
discussion?
I don't know. They do a couple of worksheets, and that's their units. But with them, it's like 2 questions, and then the rest is discussion based. So I'm assuming that that's where a lot of her stuff comes from. And for grades in Wayne County for K1, they do like worksheets. So it's all a little bit like grade.
Okay. Kindergarten, okay, so that's going to be different.
What if you made like a checklist of your?
That's exactly what I was gonna say, but I was gonna use it at the higher levels. I was gonna say, I would have a little checklist and say, okay, they participated, they were paying attention. If they're crawling around on the floor, they're not getting those points. So maybe my checklist has 5 things.
Right.
And they got a 1 out of 5. Okay, well, that's 20%, that's not mastery. Okay, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Yes,
We put that checklist on.
yes, if you're assessing it, yes.
So if we do like performance-based assessments, like we got opening throw, position, leg strength, fall through.
Yes, and there's gonna be a place where you can write that, you might say, activity number 15, I don't know. And there's gonna be a place for you to put that, so you don't have to put that sheet or whatever right there, okay? Yes,
If they like have mastered it on the previous like assessment, you have to use a formative assessment to make sure that they've actually mastered that, or do you just leave it off until the post-assessment?
not necessarily, I mean, if they mastered it, you don't necessarily have to have a formative assessment. You might have something that's a part of, but you don't have to just have a separate assessment for that since they already mastered it.
Okay.
And you hope they still master it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, I'll ask that.
Okay, all right.
What if they have like, your formative assessment shows that they need more work on that, like they have not met the goal, they're nowhere near your goal, so you need to take an extra day to re-explain it. You've already mapped out your unit. Can you insert a day? Okay.
Absolutely. As a teacher, all of you that had to go back to, or no, all of you that missed today, and or maybe you missed yesterday, when you go in tomorrow, if you have school tomorrow or Monday, are you gonna jump to Monday's lesson plan and skip Wednesday, Thursday? No, you're gonna go back and catch up. So you're inserting days, even though that might have been your unit. That might happen when you are teaching your unit. You don't just skip it because we missed school or whatever. So, yes. Yes.
It's like a possible where it's not recorded, and it's happened and you aren't able to finish it.
You will be able to finish your unit. Let's just leave it at that. Let's assume we're gonna finish our unit. If we don't, then, I think our next meeting is on February the 8th? Sometime.
We're trying to reschedule, yes. Yeah, we're gonna reschedule.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, we were, yeah,
We
we're working
rescheduled
on the
early.
date.
Okay.
Yes.
So I don't know what you've been told, but we're rescheduling the next one to a little bit earlier. Because I have to be out of town. So by that time, we'll probably know a little bit more where we stand. And if we need to say, okay, I don't know, I'm not gonna give a scenario, but we'll figure it out. Okay?
So a lot of like,
I see my kids.
yeah, we're like
Okay.
in elementary.
Oh, okay.
So we have like rotation, so I'd love to keep it.
Okay.
I could only really do one day, because I was thinking 15 days.
Okay. Let's just hope we get this. Will, and yours may be in a separate case, I don't know, we'll figure it out, okay? We're not done, I'm just practicing teacher wait time. This is the one thing, probably the hardest, one of the hardest things that you'll ever encounter. Because when we ask a question, what do we want? An immediate answer. And if we don't get an immediate answer, we get very antsy. And so a good wait time, which I think it needs to be longer, but usually we say 5 to 8 seconds. 5 to 8 seconds is not a long time when we're talking and doing all of this, but when you have to be still for 5 to 8 seconds, it seems like 5 to 8 minutes for some people, and that's the very hard thing. So what you've got to get used to is if you ask a question, you wait for an answer. Now, do you wait until tomorrow? No. You're not going to wait all day long, but you've got to give students time to think. Because had I stopped in the beginning, there was 1, 2, I think 3 questions that came when I was ready to go on. Okay, so you just got to give students time to think because they will have questions. So, task 2, we finished. Task 3 is the assessment plan. We finished, yes. Again, look at your what to do list. There's a narrative piece. I will be honest with you, the thing that sends TPAs back to its owner to fix are mostly things like you need to elaborate. You didn't answer the question or you didn't elaborate on the statement, because they're really not questions, but, you know, describe. You didn't describe anything, you just, whatever. Explain.
Are we doing the narratives as we do it or after we've done it?
I'm sure they've been done both ways. Whatever makes you happy.
All right.
I mean, if you're working on something and you've got something good to write, I'd go ahead and write it. At the end, when your unit is over, you may say, oh, I wish I'd put that in there. Go back and stick it in there. So I'd say it's an ongoing document. Yes?
So, on task 3, the section of documents, do we just put pre-tests, or I assume we just put the pre-test on there and then explain which learning goals there be in each section of this meeting?
You mean on the required artifacts?
Yeah.
I should probably
Task 3 documents.
Okay, so you're going to attach all those formative assessments that you're using, you're gonna attach them here, and you'll notice in the required artifact list, as well as your pre and post and all of that, it says student and teacher directions for each assessment. So if there are not directions, I mean, if you just stick some worksheet up there or something and expect me to know what to do and there are no directions, I'm not gonna have a clue. So if I give the students an activity to do, and I explain to them as the teacher what they need to do, but that's not on there, you need to put it here with that. Just, you know, I told the students they needed to blah, 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 blah. So you're gonna put all of those things there. This particular section may expand your TPA 20 or 30 pages if you have all those assessments. I don't know. Yes?
So any handout we give in our unit goes on the TPA as well?
Yes, but I'm gonna be facetious here, okay? And say if you have 15 minutes left over and you decide it's color time and you give them 15 coloring pages, I don't wanna see 15 coloring pages. So I'm being silly, but for the most part, probably everything you do, but if it doesn't have anything to do with your unit and you're not, you know, anything that has to do with your unit, yes. Okay? Yes.
Do we take pictures of it and put it in that way? Like if I have like handouts, like I have a packet that has like reading information and it's like 15 pages long. And it's not like for 5th grade, so it's nothing like detailed, but do I put each page or just like the cover of the packet?
Probably what I would do is, since that is such a huge document and it is going to expand your TPA, and this goes for some of you who like to take pictures and you just want to show the evaluator, oh look, we were doing this great culminating activity and look how the students are working together, and you want to take 20 pictures and show us, that's fine. Just don't put it in your TPA, make a separate file and upload it as you're going to upload your TPA, as you're going to upload the consent and release forms in a separate file. Do that. So because it's such a huge document, I would probably put a page there and say, I have given my 5th graders this 15-page packet and we're going to be doing 3 pages a day or whatever, or as we get to it, you can see the actual packet in detail in a separate file.
Okay. And so when I put the papers or anything that I'm doing, I will just, or like if it's just a page, I'll just take a picture of it and upload it.
Or you can, yes, or you can scan it and upload it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
On the technical side of that, if you have a bunch of stuff you want to put in, my advice is to create a separate Word document and insert your pictures into the Word document, insert your copies of your worksheets into that Word document for the simple reason, when you try to upload that to LiveText, it's gonna upload a lot faster than if you're trying to upload pictures that you haven't edited and shrunk down to size already, because that would take time, so. That's my advice, it's easier for the reviewer to see it, if it's already in a Word document, and just say it's exhibits A through F, or 1 through 5, and just the titles.
That's what I meant, just didn't say, because that's how. Yes.
Okay, so for my pre-post, I thought about doing like a code test online. How would I do that? How would you want me to?
Is that's not your pretest thing?
I thought about
Oh, you thought about it?
it.
Well, and that's okay.
Because
You're
when I,
just,
like at my last clinical, the kids had like, they were so like distraught taking it on paper class.
okay.
So I didn't.
And that's fine, just like, clickers. Like some of you have had me for class and I've used clickers, and you can calculate, or you can get all that data and download it. You can still list the questions, so what you might want to do is just list the questions so that the evaluator needs to see and not have to go look at a separate, piece of technology to find that. List it and say, this is how I administered this, and these were the results, blah, blah, blah. Yes?
I've been toying to see, like after I get students pre-testing or anything, I'm teaching students how to play instruments and everything like that. I'm
Okay.
thinking about giving like maybe study guides that help them with fingerings and everything like
Okay.
that. I wonder if that's like okay, like if it's not like recommended.
No, and that, I would even assess part of that. That might be part of your, I don't know, final assessment, maybe not on your pre or your post, but, if you want to know, did they master the clarinet? So do they have the fingerings right? Can they blow through the horn the way they're supposed to? Can they put the reed on the way they're supposed to? Are they squeaking every time they blow into the clarinet? Which I would be, but, yeah. Or, if it's a flute, of course, it doesn't have, but make sure they can put the end piece on the right way and the other piece on the right way.
Yeah.
So you could have a little checklist like we talked about for something. That could be your assessment for that. Yes?
I was wondering about for task 3 for the document section. Is that just like the blank template of each assessment that we create? So we wouldn't put like our students, the response that the students give us.
You can choose a student or 2 students if you want to put, maybe even your focus students, you don't have to, but please mark out any names. Some people put in a blank pre-assessment test and a answer key for the pre-assessment so that we can kind of see the answers. I've seen just the blank and the answer key that the teacher did put in there. So we've had all kinds of versions. It's nice to see the answers just so maybe if we're trying to see if we can answer the question or if we get it right. But you can put student work in there. Just please make sure that you mark out or remove or something there.
Okay. Is there any specific portion of the TPA where we have to put student, aside from the, there's one later task where we have to put like how they did on the pre and post assessment?
But we're not even going to ask for names there either.
Okay.
We want you to call them student ABC 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
probably black, I don't, something. You could, I don't know if I'd even use initials there.
Okay. What about the formative assessments, or is that just in the task? Is that just in the task 3 portion itself? Would we like show if we gave a formative assessment and had the student do it? Where would we put that student's work?
The same way in task 3 where it says, because that's probably going to be a thing where you're going to have to put student or teacher directions or something like that. So yeah, I would list those or put those there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
In addition to my pre and post tests, my students are going to be writing a research paper.
Okay.
Would we attach their papers?
No, I probably would not. Now, if you, I would attach the rubric, definitely. If you want to give, I guess, an example, just so the evaluator can see what a final product looks like. I don't know if they'll get a final product in the short amount of time you're there, maybe. You might.
It's a mini research, it's like 2
Oh, okay.
pages.
Oh, okay. So you might, but I wouldn't put everybody's in there.
What about my 2 focus students?
You could do that. You might even put their graded one in there, but again, take things off to show how they did or, compared to what you expected. Yes.
Okay, so for on the secondary, and a lot of my questions are elections. So you got my PowerPoint and my website, so I'm in election stuff.
You can do that. We've had students put PowerPoints and things like that in their TPA. I would probably, again, reference it in the TPA and make it a separate attachment.
So, okay, so for me, I'm teaching, I'm not doing PowerPoint, I'm teaching
Oh,
websites. So I
okay.
have, like, websites for them to do those, and I've got, I have an access to the school doing that. So I made websites for them to be able to go home and look at, and type and then on the website.
Yes, and that's a good thing. She's using websites, and that is a what? Resource. And if you look at the required artifacts, every single one of them, well, except the one I'm looking at, well, all the others, and that one should say it too, say resources. You're supposed to list your resource, cite your resource references, it says. But yes, I would definitely put those in because that's a resource that you're using and you just. Yes.
So I'm
Okay, all right.
and I also have like my bell ringers on my phone.
Okay.
So when I upload that to the second document, and then like.
I probably would because unless your PowerPoint's only like 3 or 4 slides and you want to shrink them and do the 3 or the 6 per page and just put that in as one page. But an evaluator might want to look at it. So you could also attach it as a separate file and say if you want to look at it, you know. And I'll be honest, they may or may not look at it, but at least you've got it there and you've referenced it.
Okay. Speaking of citing resources, if we get information from like the secretary or principal or like
I would just put that I got that information from the, school office or whatever. Yeah. And you could, if you get it from several, you could just put school office personnel or something. Yes, ma'am.
Back on to the citing of the sources.
Uh-huh.
If we use stuff like Kahoot or websites like that, will we do we like give a reference sheet for them, or do we just mention, I administered this formative assessment through Kahoot?
I think Kahoot is familiar enough to most people that you could mention that and it would be okay.
Okay, so we wouldn't need to make a separate reference page just for Kahoot?
No.
Okay. Or what about any other particular, would it just be if the website might be unfamiliar as a resource?
No, I would list it as a resource, but you don't have, I thought you were saying you were going to tell them how to use it and list all the questions, like go to the specific spot where your questions are. No, I would list it as a reference.
Okay.
But you don't have to, give directions on how to get there and how to use it and all that.
Okay, thank you.
And that's true for any others that you would use as well. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so we were talking about it, like, our references, do we put a reference page after each task, or do we just put that in the entire TPA?
The TPA is designed so that you put it at the end of each task.
Okay.
Now, why task 3 doesn't say it, I'm not sure, but you should have one there too. But if you don't have any references for a particular section, you don't have to put it. Task 4. Task 4 is your design for instruction. So this is your lesson plan. And you will see in the template that the lesson plan, I think we mentioned this on the orientation day. First, it follows. But you've got this on focus students, okay? So you're being asked some questions on your focus students. Don't forget, you probably have already, I hope, have already chosen your focus